he should take to address this objective. So margin of error D is 5%. Confidence level given is 95%. That will give the critical value of Z 1.96. Then using the formula, yeah, I get sample size as N, which is 382, substituting the values. Some considerations. The final sample size, there is one correction factor which is used in case of non-response error. Respond ही नहीं किया, उस sample ने जवाब ही नहीं दिया, so I cannot collect the data. So here the total size of population is N. If N is less than 10,000, then we need correction formula which is defined by small nf, which is n naught upon 1 plus n naught upon capital N. Here nf is final sample size, n naught is sample size from the above formula, and capital N is total population. And that is the population size. Incorrect sample size. Now, what is the problems that arise from incorrect sample size? It will lead to wrong conclusions, poor quality research. Type 2 error can be minimized by increasing the sample size, waste of resources, loss of money, ethical problems, and delay in conclusion. Then we come to exploratory research design or qualitative research. Now, what are qualitative research procedures? There are some direct methods and indirect methods. In direct methods, we have focus groups and depth interviews. In indirect methods, we have projective techniques. Now, projective techniques can be association techniques, completion techniques, construction techniques, or expressive techniques. Now, what is the main difference between qualitative and quantitative research? In quantitative research, we need to quantify the data and generalize the result from sample to population of interest. And in qualitative research, to gain a qualitative understanding of underlying reasons and motivations. In quantitative research, large number of representative cases, and in sample, small number of non-representative cases are required. In case of quantitative, it is a structured method of data collection. Qualitative में unstructured. When I am taking an interview, it is not always feasible. आप interview में questions जो सोच के जाते हो और पूछने बैठते हो, तो you may change up with that. So it is not structured. So in qualitative, it is unstructured. Data analysis is non-statistical, and in quantitative, it is statistical. Outcome in qualitative is develop an initial understanding, and quantitative recommend a final course of action. So mainly जो decision making है, quantitative will directly lead you to decision making, but qualitative, it is more required when you are doing the exploratory research or you want to know the intuition of people around you. Focus groups. Now, characteristics of focus groups. Focus groups is when people are some experts, people for a particular discussion are sitting together, and then they are presenting their views on a particular thing, and then their discussions are also there is a moderator who records their discussion, and if some clarification is needed, he interrupts in between, and then an analysis is done. So here group size is 8 to 12. Group composition homogeneous. Respondents are pre-screened naturally. If the experts are taken, they should have a proper knowledge of the required field. Physical seating, relaxed, informal atmosphere, time duration 1 to 3 hours. It is like a meeting going on where each person has a freedom to express their opinions about a particular subject in hand, the topic in hand. Recording, use of audio cassettes and videotapes. Procedure for conducting a focus group. Design focus group environment, recruit and select focus group participants, select a moderator, prepare the discussion guide, conduct group interview, prepare focus group report. Advantages of focus group: synergism, snowballing, simulation, security, spontaneity. Means when you are sitting in a group, your things are getting cleared in a better way from face-to-face discussions, and you get the results in a 3D way. So all these are advantages of focus group. Disadvantages: misuse, misjudge, moderation. Moderation may you may misinterpret the word a particular person has said, messy, when there is a lot of unfriendly discussion, misrepresentation. Advantage, then you have, similarly, there are advantages and disadvantages of online focus group. But for you, focus groups, you should know what is it and what are its advantages and limitations. If we are comparing online and traditional focus groups, then in online the group size may be less. Online, it can be anywhere in the world. Meeting is usually of lesser duration. Researcher has lesser control over the physical setting, and respondent identity is difficult to verify. Attentiveness may be less, but it is easier and flexible. So whatever things you know that in online class and offline class में क्या differences, and the same goes for the here as well. Depth interviews like focus groups, depth interviews are unstructured and direct way of obtaining the information. Unlike focus groups, depth interviews are conducted on one-to-one basis. These interviews typically last for 30 minutes to more than an hour. They attempt to uncover underlying motives, prejudices, or attitudes towards sensitive issues. Substantial probing is done to surface underlying motives, beliefs, and attitudes. Probing is done by asking such questions. Why do you say that? That's interesting. Can you tell me more? So depth interview may there is a face-to-face discussion, and you can even if you want an elaborative answer, you can ask for it. Would you like to add anything else? Advantages can uncover deeper insights about the underlying motives than focus group, can attribute the responses directly to respondent, unlike focus group, result in a free exchange of information, and there is no social pressure to confirm. As a result of probing, it is possible to get at real issues when the topic is complex. Disadvantages of depth interviews. Skilled interviewers are capable of conducting depth interviews, are expensive and difficult to find. Excuse me, I have class going on. You go upstairs. 5:30 I'll get. Skilled interviewers capable of conducting depth interviews are expensive and difficult to find. The quality and completeness of results depend heavily on the interviewer's skills. The data obtained are difficult to analyze and interpret. The length of interview combined with high cost limits the number of depth interviews. So here, uh, focus versus depth interviews. Focus groups have certain um, uh, limitations and advantages. Similarly, for depth interviews. So these are the characteristics. In wherever I have plus sign, focus groups have an added advantages, and minus sign means the other one, the other depth interview is at advantage. Like amount of information in focus group is more, because in amount of information, focus group has a group of experts. So I can get more insights about a particular topic. Projective techniques and unstructured indirect form of questioning that encourages respondents to project their underlying motivations, beliefs, attitudes, or feelings regarding the issue of concern. In projective techniques, respondents are asked to interpret the behavior of others. In interpreting the behavior of others, respondents indirectly project their own motivations, beliefs, attitudes, or feelings into the situation. Word association. In word association, respondents are presented with a list of words one at a time and asked to respond to each with the first word that comes to mind. The words of interest called test words are interspersed throughout the list, which also contain some neutral or filler words to disguise the purpose of study. Responses are analyzed by calculating frequency with which any word is given as response, the amount of time that elapses before a response is given, the number of respondents who do not respond at all to test a word within a reasonable period of time. Then comes completion techniques. In sentence completion, respondents are given incomplete sentences and asked to complete them. Generally, they are asked to use first word or phrase that comes to mind. A person who wears Tommy Hilfiger shirts is this. As compared to Polo Gant and Eddie Bear, Tommy Hilfiger shirts are this. So, what is the image of Tommy Hilfiger as per the particular respondent? That will be clear to you. A variation of sentence completion is paragraph completion, in which respondent completes a paragraph beginning with a stimulus phrase. In story completion, respondents are given part of story enough to direct attention to a particular topic, but not to hint at the ending. they are required to give conclusion in their own words. Then this is also projective technique where some image is given, and based on the image, they are asking you a question. What is your interpretation? Like here, what would you think Miss A or Miss B would bring more milk? Possibly the same amount, or possibly the same amount. Give reason behind it. So what do you get to know from the image? It might be same answers from different respondents or different answers from different respondents based on what they perceive from the image. Expressive techniques. In expressive techniques, respondents are presented with a verbal or visual situation and asked to relate the feelings and attitudes of other people to the situation. Role playing, respondents are asked to play the role or assume the behavior of someone else. Third person technique, the respondent is presented with a verbal or visual situation and he is asked to relate the beliefs and attitudes of a third person rather than directly expressing personal beliefs and attitudes. This third person may be a friend, neighbor, colleague, or a typical person. Advantages of projective technique. They may elicit responses that subjects would be unwilling or unable to give if they knew the purpose of study. Helpful when issues to be addressed are personal, sensitive, or subject to strong social norms. Helpful when underlying motivation, beliefs, and attitudes are operating at a subconscious level. Suffer from many of the disadvantages of unstructured direct technique, but to a greater. This is disadvantages of projective technique. Suffer from many of disadvantages of unstructured direct techniques, but to a greater extent require highly trained interviewers. Skilled interpreters are also required to analyze responses. Serious risk of interpretation bias. They tend to be expensive, may require respondents to engage in unusual behavior. Guidelines for using projective techniques, they should be used because the required information cannot be accurately obtained by direct methods. Projective techniques should be used for exploratory research to gain initial insights and understanding. Now again, this is a flow chart where primary data, secondary data are the main sources of data. For primary, I'm either using qualitative or quantitative. In qualitative, focus group, in-depth interviews, projective techniques, and in projective techniques, the expressive techniques, word association, sentence completion, and projective. Now designing a questionnaire, some part of it was done in the uh, initial slide. I have bring the detailed discussion of questionnaire designing here because it can be a complete question, and wherever like they use the word double barrel questions, what does those mean, those phrases mean, that is why I have done in detail. So designing a questionnaire, again, it is an art. The sequence of question is very important. The process of questionnaire design, planning what to measure. So what to measure, revisit the research objectives, decide on research issue of questionnaire, get the additional information on research issue from secondary data sources and exploratory research, decide on what is to be asked under the research issue, decide how you want to analyze the data collected. Then formatting the questionnaire. In each issue, determine the content of each question, decide on the format of each question, retest the questionnaire, correct the problems. So planning what to measure, specify research objectives and information to be collected, determine relevance and scope of study, retest preliminary versions of questionnaire. Translating research objectives into information requirement, questions should address hypothesis to be tested. Now formatting the questions. Decide on degree of freedom to be given to respondents in answering the questions. Open-end. Now there are several type of questions. Open-ended questions with no classification. Open-ended where the interviewer uses pre-coding. Classification to record the response. Close-ended or structured format in which question or supplementary card presents responses to be considered, like my MCQs, yes, no questions. Then open response questions for introduction to a survey or to a topic when it is important to measure the salience of an issue to a respondent. when there are too many responses to be listed or they cannot be foreseen, when verbatim responses are desired to give the flavor of people's answer or to cite examples, when behavior to be measured is sensitive or disapproved. So, in these situations, these open-ended questions are asked, like how do you feel about public transportation in downtown Hartford? Now here, list of possible options cannot be presented. And what I foresee, there may be some other response that is there in the respondent's mind. So here I ask open-ended question. Again, it has some advantages and disadvantages. Advantages include wide range of responses. Each person can give a varied response and it will be difficult for me to analyze such questions. Responses obtained without any influence. Naturally, a freedom, there is a freedom in mind to give answer what you are thinking. You are not forced to give answer in any particular direction. Three choices. Disadvantages: variability in clarity and depth of response, articulateness of respondent in personal interview, willingness to compose a written answer for a mail survey, interviewer's ability to record the verbatim answers quickly, interviewer bias, time consuming, involves judgment, and are more prone to error. Expensive answers expand or contract depending on the space or time available. Sometimes you have a long answer in mind, but only two lines are given. Then you can't express it. Or a large number of lines are given, but you have a one word answer. So that way, respondents may not use the same frame of relevance when the options are not available. Closed response questions, two basic formats for closed-ended or structured questions. Choice from a list of responses, appropriate single choice rating on a scale. Closed, maybe again there are advantages and limitations. Advantages: easy to answer, require less effort, tabulation and analysis is easier, less potential error in the way question is asked. The responses are directly comparable from the respondent to respondent. Limitations: disagreement among researchers on type of responses to be listed. I may uh, see that there should be six options listed in this answer, and some might say that three options are enough. So there can be disagreement. The answer to a closed response question will be received no matter how relevant or irrelevant the question is in that context. May not produce meaningful results. Dichotomous questions are prone to large amount of measurement error because alternatives are polarized. Provide fewer opportunity of self-expression. Alternative responses provide answers not considered by respondents. Now, in advantages and limitations, you yourself can think. See, if open-ended questions are given, then what are its advantages? And if closed-ended questions are given to you in questionnaire, then what do you think are advantages, limitations? And you can give in your own words. Designing the questionnaire, number of response categories. Generally, there are 5 to 7 categories. Ideally, multiple choices should be mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive means they should not overlap. Order of response categories can affect responses. What factors influence your fast food restaurant choice most? Now, these are the factors given. To prevent order bias, place the average or expected response at various positions in sequence of categories. Range of response categories. Respondents who do not know the answer might take category as cues. Now there can be two options: less than 5, 5 to 10, more than 10, less than 10, 10 to 20, more than 20. How many long distance calls do you make? So you have to choose the category appropriately. Handling uncertainty and ignorance concerns the handling of don't know or neutral responses. May be advisable to provide interviewer with an additional no answer category to identify these people correctly. Can't say no answer, neutral response, I agree, not disagree. So these are problematic. 1 minute. concerns the handling of don't know or neutral response. Then using both open response and closed response question. Now, whenever I need to probe, I have to investigate or inquire in something, then open response questions to follow up a closed response question. Two general purposes for using the probe: pinpoint questions that were particularly difficult to respondents, aid researcher interpretation of respondent answer. I hope. Question wording. Is the vocabulary simple, direct, and familiar to all respondents? Do any words have vague or ambiguous meaning? Are any questions double barreled? Are any questions leading or loaded? Are the instructions potentially confusing? Is question applicable to all respondents? Are the questions of appropriate length? So everything has to be properly decided and put in the questionnaire. Questionnaire wording. Avoid ambiguous words. How many times per month do you visit a fast food restaurant? Never, occasionally, sometimes, often. So these words are sometimes not clear to the respondent. So ambiguous words का use नहीं करना. Check if any of the questions are loaded. Don't you think because it is so greasy, fast food is one of the worst type of food? So this is already directing in one particular direction that they are against fast food. So what are you asking the respondent when you are yourself directing a particular answer? Do you prefer a hamburger that is grilled on a hot stainless steel grill or cooked by passing the raw meat through an open gas flame? So here the questions are loaded. Questions should be very clear, precise. Are any questions double barrel? Double barrel means you are asking two, three things in the same question. Are you satisfied with the price and service of Taco Bell? Now, it may be a case that I am satisfied with price, but not with service. It may be the other way around that I am satisfied with service and not with price. So, what should I answer the question? ये तो तभी yes or no बैठेगा ना when price and service both are good तो yes करें. But if one is good, the other is not, then it will be problematic for even respondent to respond this question appropriately. Is the question applicable to all respondents? Why do you like fast food? Assumes that respondents like fast food. So these questions can come after one general question. Consumption of Kellogg's frosted flakes, the casual approach. Have you eaten frosted flakes with the last week? Numbered card. Would you please read off the number on this card that corresponds to what you had eaten for breakfast in the last week? So different ways of asking questions. Asking sensitive questions. Everybody approach. As you know, many people have been eating frosted flakes for breakfast. Do you eat frosted flakes? So everybody approach means first I have given a generalized statement so that the person doesn't feel that they are specifically asking him. The other people approach. That is a third person approach. Do you know of any adult who eats frosted flakes? How about yourself? Because if you directly ask the respondent, then he might not be willing to answer that question. If I use third person approach, then maybe he answers in a comfortable way. Sealed ballot technique. Explain what the survey respects people's right to anonymity with respect to their eating habits. Now, sealed ballot is you write your answer and you pack it in an envelope and give. Whenever there is some sensitive question, then people are not willing to respond openly. Then they can write answers and put it in an envelope without revealing their identity. Since approach, look into respondents' eyes and ask in a simple, clear-cut language, do you eat frosted flakes for breakfast? So this is a direct way of asking. Randomized response technique. The respondent is asked to answer one or two randomly selected questions without revealing which question has been answered. Question sensitive होना चाहिए. In yeah, in questions, it may be sensitive, inoffensive. Since the interviewer records a yes or no answer without knowing which question has been answered, the respondent feels free to answer honestly. Now, sequence and layout decisions. Even in the questionnaire, the sequence of question and how the flow of question go from one level to another, that matters a lot. Open with an easy and non-threatening question. ensure that questionnaire has smooth and logical flow from one topic to the next, proceed from broad general questions to more specific ones, do not place sensitive or difficult questions dealing with income status, ability, etc. at the beginning of questionnaire. Use good quality of paper. Then organization of typical questionnaire. How the questionnaire should be arranged. Starting questions should be broad general questions. Next few questions should be simple and direct. Then questions up to in the next level, third part should be focused questions. Major portion of the questionnaire should be focused questions. Some may be difficult and complicated. And last few questions are personal questions that may be perceived by respondent as sensitive. Do not put sensitive questions if necessary in the beginning. Put it at the last. Taki then till that time person becomes comfortable in giving you the answers. Then you have order bias. Does the question create the answer? Now, if you see questions preceding buying interest question. Now, whether you are showing a buying interest or not, before that, how many questions are preceding? No question. Matlab, first question is the buying interest question. In this case, percentage of respondents who are interested in buying the product is too less, only 2.8%. If previously I have asked only advantages of that particular new product, and then I'm coming on to buying interest question, then 16.7% people are interested in buying product because previously all the advantages have been discussed. Third point, if I have discussed all the disadvantages of the product and then I am asking the buying interest question, then naturally आप सारा negative mind हो चुके हैं आपका उस product को लेके, then there is 0% who will buy the product. After that, ask both advantages and disadvantages, so a medium person, 5.7%. But if I have asked all the advantages in the beginning and then I'm coming on to buying interest, then basically the number of respondents, the number of people who are showing interest in that particular product are much more because of those advantages. Pre-test design, whatever questionnaire you do, you design it, you pre-test it on a small sample. So if some vocabulary issue are there, people are not able to understand a particular question, or there is lot of response error in a question, that may be corrected before the questionnaire is passed to the entire sample. So information from respondents, issue in data collection, information from surveys, used to capture wide variety of information, attitude, decisions, measuring relationship between action, needs, desires, preferences, motives, and goals. Sources of survey error. Now, meaningful results के लिए error can be population, whether it is defined correctly or not. Respondents selected are able and willing to cooperate. Questions are understood by respondents. Sample is representative of population. Interviewer correctly understands and records the response. Respondents have knowledge, opinion, attitude, or facts required. Then sources of error and information from respondent. Population से आपने sampling frame लिया. When you are choosing a sample, then there may be sampling error or non-response due to refusal or not at home. Then a respondent is taken, interviewer is asking question. Now, there can be ambiguity in question, or there can be interviewer error where questions are not put up correctly by the interviewer. Now, when coming to the answer part, there can be inaccuracy in response, inability to formulate a response, or unwillingness to respond. Also, there can be ambiguity in answer. The answer is not clearly stated. Then you have non-response error due to refusals. You have this you can skip. This is not required at your level. Inaccuracy in response. Now, it may be due to inability to respond. Telescoping. Telescoping means memory bias, missed date events. आपको लगता है कि अभी अभी event हुआ था, लेकिन वो बहुत पहले हुआ था. So you are not able to correctly remember the timeline of the event happening. Averaging. Omission. Fails to provide response. incomplete response, cannot formulate an adequate answer. These are inaccuracy in response. Now, sorry, unwillingness to respond accurately. This may be due to concern about invasion of privacy, time pressure and fatigue, prestige seeking and social desirability, response bias, courtesy bias, uninformed response bias, response style. Interviewer error. This depends on respondent's impression of the interviewer, questioning, probing, and recording, fraud, and deceit. Methods of data collection. Now, these are personal interview, telephonic interviews, self-administered survey, through mail, etc. Again, now we are coming on to factors affecting the choice of survey method. Sampling, type of population, question form, question content, response rate, cost, available facilities, and duration of data collection. Ethical issues in data collection. Misrepresentation of data collection process stems from representation of a marketing activity other than research as research. Abuse of respondents' rights during the data collection process under the rationale of providing better quality research. Example, use of survey for selling purposes, use of survey to obtain name and addresses of prospects for direct marketing. The rights of respondents can be violated by disguising the purpose of particular measurement so that it can't be recognized, misrepresenting the compensation in order to gain cooperation. Like they say, we'll give you free gifts if you fill this form. Not mentioning that a follow-up interview will be made. Using projective tests and unnoticed measures to circumvent or put off the need for respondent consent. Using hidden tape recorders to record personal interviews. These are all unethical. Conducting simulated product tests in which the identical product is tried by respondent except for variation in characteristics such as color. They have no influence on quality of product. Not debriefing the respondent. Now come to hypothesis testing, which is again example determination or hypothesis testing. These two topics are evaluated for numerical purposes. So 1 to 2 questions at the max. Rest is all your research design, report writing, sampling, sample size determination, usefulness of marketing research, ethical issues. These are all theoretical. So questions are basically either from hypothesis testing or from sample size determination. Hypothesis testing, basic concept and test of association. Assumption made about population parameter is hypothesis, a statement or claim which is you are making of the about the population. Purpose of hypothesis testing to make a judgment about the difference between two sample statistics or between sample statistics and a hypothesized population parameter. Evidence has to be evaluated statistically before arriving at a conclusion regarding hypothesis. It depends on whether information generated from sample with fewer or larger observations. Now, in hypothesis testing, the null hypothesis is tested against alternative hypothesis. Null hypothesis, it is a standard notation H0, and alternative hypothesis is HA. At least the null hypothesis is stated. Decide upon the criteria to be used in making the decision whether to reject or not reject the null hypothesis. So how we know what is null hypothesis? Equality signs always come under null hypothesis. Now, the process of hypothesis testing involves the following steps. Problem definition. Clearly state null and alternative hypothesis. Choose the relevant test and appropriate probability distribution. Choose critical value. Compare test statistic and critical value. And does the test statistic fall in critical region? If yes, then accept the null hypothesis. If no, then reject the null hypothesis. Now, while choosing the critical value, significance level has to be given. It is already given in the question. And compare test statistic. तो टेस्ट स्टैटिस्टिक आपको याद रखनी पड़ती है कि क्या है. टेस्ट स्टैटिस्टिक का फॉर्मूला, लाइक फॉर मीन इट इज एक्स बार माइनस म्यू अपॉन S by root n या sigma by root n. If population standard deviation is known, it is sigma by root n. तो वो जो test statistic का formula है, that you need to remember. Otherwise, the procedure or steps remains the same. While choosing the distribution, you have to also decide the degree of freedom and whether the test to be used is one tail or two tail. Now, basic concepts of hypothesis testing. Three criteria to be used to decide critical value. Significance level, that is alpha. Degree of freedom, जो chi-square में use होती है, t-test में use होती है. In some distributions, degree of freedom is used. One or two tail test. Now, if errors can be on either side, then it is two tail. If error is directed on one particular side, then it is one tail. Then significance level, it indicates the percentage of sample means that is outside the cutoff limit, critical value. Higher the significance level used for testing hypothesis, higher the probability of rejecting null hypothesis when it is true. So type 1, the definition of type 1 and type 2 error are very important. Type 1 error is rejecting a null hypothesis when it is true, and probability of type 1 error is called by significance level. On the other hand, accepting a null hypothesis when it is false, it is called type 2 error. When choosing a level of significance, there is an inherent trade-off between these two types of error. A good test of hypothesis should reject a null hypothesis when it is false. Now, this is a general normal distribution curve. Now, since the shaded region are on both sides, left and right, so it is basically alpha significance level is divided into two halves, alpha by 2 on right side and alpha by 2 on left side. That dark blue portion which is highlighted, this is a critical region or rejection region. And here two tail test is there because there are two tails on two extremes where it can be rejected. And in between where it is showing 0.99, that is 99% of area, this is your confidence level of 99%, क्योंकि इस फिगर में ऊपर लिखा हुआ है significance level is 1%. So 99% is confidence level and this is the acceptance region. So if your test statistic value lies in 99% of area, then it is your null hypothesis is accepted. And if it is lying in the tail area which is shaded, then your null hypothesis is rejected. Again, and your confidence acceptance region gets reduced. Choosing the critical value. 1 minute. Choosing the critical value. Power of hypothesis test 1 minus beta should be as high as possible. Degree of freedom. The number of bits of free or unconstrained data used in calculating a sample statistic or test statistic. Sample mean X has n degree of freedom. A sample variance S square has n minus 1 degree of freedom. Don't look at this. Degree of freedom is basically what independence I have. Suppose in an equation I have x plus y equal to 10. Then here, suppose I give with independence any value to x. Then y has to depend on this equation. Suppose I give x as 20. Now if I say x plus y is 10, y has to be minus 10. So degree of freedom is 1. I cannot have freedom to assign any value to x and y, which can follow x plus y equal to 10. So degree of freedom is how many values can be given independently. And it is a particular parameter in certain distributions like chi-square distribution. Now, the hypothesis testing, the frequency distribution, this is just a summary table. Take 1 minute. So this is just a summary which is showing hypothesis testing and associated test, statistical test. Frequency distribution में goodness of fit and test of independence के लिए we use chi-square test. For proportions B, for one sample Z test. For comparing sample and population proportion when they are more than 1. Then T test, and comparing two sample proportion, again either Z test or T test, depending upon whether the standard deviation is known and sample size is large or small. For mean, comparing sample and population mean, again either Z test or T test, depending upon the whether standard deviation is known or unknown, and also depends on sample size. For small samples, generally small samples are sample size less than 30 in statistics. They use t-test. For variance, again comparing variance, chi-square test. बट वेरिएंस वाला आपके सिलेबस में नहीं है, आपका मेन प्रोपोर्शन chi-square है. Then one-tail hypothesis test or two-tail hypothesis test. In one tail determines whether a particular population parameter is larger or smaller than some predefined value. It uses one critical value of test statistics. So the entire error is on one side, either in right side or in left side. In two-tail hypothesis test, it determines the likelihood that population parameter is within certain upper and lower bounds. It may use one or two critical values. Basic concepts of hypothesis testing. Select the appropriate probability distribution based on two criteria: size of sample and whether the population standard deviation is known or not. Hypothesis testing. Now, again, this is just a summary that if I reject the true null hypothesis, then it is type 1 error. And if I accept the false null hypothesis, then it is type 2 error. Cross tabulation and chi-square. Cross tabulation and chi-square. Am I audible? Or is there any difficulty?
Yes, ma'am, there is some disturbance.
So cross tabulation and chi-square. Chi-square, as I said, is used either in goodness of it or in knowing whether there is interrelationship between particular variables are independent or not. So when I have chi-square test, goodness of fit means एक particular distribution दी हुई है और आपके पास एक data दिया हुआ है. Suppose accident data is given and I say whether this data fits to a particular Poisson distribution or not. Then I use goodness of fit test. And if two variables are given, like the data for people having heart attack and whether they are smoking or not. So a table is given where in one side they are writing heart attack, no heart attack, and in smoking they are writing smoker or non-smoker. So some cell values are given as if how many people have heart attack and they were smokers, how many people have heart attack and they are non-smokers, how many people are not having heart attack but are smokers, and no heart attack, no smokers. So whether there exists some relationship between heart attack and smoking, this I want to know, then I'll use chi-square test. So in marketing applications, chi-square statistic is used as test of independence. Are there association between two or more variables in study? Test for goodness of it. Is there a significant difference between an observed frequency distribution and theoretical frequency distribution? Now, what do we mean by statistical independence? The two variables are statistically independent if knowledge of one would offer no information as for the other variable. Now, statistical test like this is given. Two variables are there. Drawing a customer in Los Angeles. Now, customer can be loyal, feel prone, variety seeking, and then choice task in New York. Choose or not choose. So different customers are there in each category. Loyal, choose, loyal, not choose, deal prone, choose, deal prone, not choose, variety seeking, choose, variety seeking, not choose, and so on. So a table will be given to you. You are given the observed values in the cells, and expected values are found by multiplying a particular row total into column total upon total values. Like for loyal choose, the value is given as 16. So 16 is the observed value, and expected value will be found by, see, this cell is in first row and first column. And for first row, if I add up 16 plus 24, it is 40. So row total is 40. 16 is in first column, and for first column, total is 80. So 40 into 80 divided by 200, that will be the expected outcomes. I will find expected outcomes for each cell, and observed outcomes are given. And then we'll use the formula of chi-square that I'll show in the following slide. Independence में null hypothesis will be two variables are statistically independent, and alternative will be they are not independent. अगर fitting of distribution है, in null hypothesis I will write that the observations fit to this particular distribution, and in alternate I'll write they will not fit to this distribution. And chi-square curve is a curve which is not like normal distribution. It is a positively skewed curve with tail on the right hand side. So here, when I'm checking goodness of fit and one test of independence, in these particular case, since I want to know a fit, मेरे को ज़्यादा अच्छा fit है वो problematic नहीं है, ज़्यादा खराब fit problematic है. So my error is on one side only, and that is your positively skewed. Right side पे एक ही तरफ पूरा alpha होता है. chi-square test हमेशा हम generally हम one tail करते हैं for the goodness of fit and test of independence. Degree of freedom. Now, in case of where I have table, I want to know the association. Degree of freedom is number of rows minus 1 into number of columns minus 1. And the chi-square test statistic that we use is observed value minus expected value whole square upon expected value, summing over all possible cells. So chi-square step-by-step, formulate hypothesis, calculate row and column total, calculate row and column proportions, calculate expected frequency, calculate chi-square statistic, degree of freedom, obtain critical value from table, and make decision regarding the null hypothesis. So limitations of chi-square as an association measure. It is basically proportional to sample size, difficult to interpret in absolute sense and compare crosstabs of unequal size. You don't bother about limitations. आपको chi-square करना आना चाहिए. इसकी ऐसी कोई strict limitations नहीं है. Beneficial ही होता है. Used to investigate how वो जबरदस्ती you can find out points, but it is generally beneficial. Used to investigate how well the observed pattern fits the expected pattern. Researcher may determine whether population distribution corresponds to either normal, Poisson, or binomial. To determine degree of freedom, employ K-1 rule, that is whatever the number of classes are there, -1. Subtract an additional degree of freedom for each population parameter that has to be estimated from sample data. So sometimes parameters of population are not given in advance. If they are not given, you need to estimate. And for each estimation, degree of freedom gets reduced. So hypothesis testing for mean and proportion. Now, we have already discussed in a summary table. आपके size of sample पे depend करता है. अगर size बड़ा है, more than 30 है, then Z-test is used. If sample size is less than 30, then T-test is used. If standard deviation is known, then sample size doesn't really matter. I can go for Z-test. If standard deviation is not known, I have to estimate the standard deviation through sample variance, and then T-test is applicable. Single mean, formulate hypothesis, select appropriate formula, significance level, calculate Z or T statistic, degree of freedom for T-test, obtain critical value from table. T generally n-1 degree of freedom होता है. ठीक है, मेक डिसीजन रिगार्डिंग दी नल हाइपोथेसिस। एग्जाम्पल टू टेल टेस्ट में सपोज population mean for certain variable is 5000 and alternate hypothesis mu is not equal to 5000। h नॉट में हमेशा इक्वल टू आएगा। अगर वन टेल है तो एच ए में ऑल्टरनेट में ग्रेटर देन इक्वल टू या लेस देन इक्वल टू आता है, और अगर टू टेल है तो एच ए में नॉट इक्वल टू आता है। एच ए को कई बुक्स एच वन से भी रिप्रेजेंट करती हैं, बट एच नॉट की कोई और नोटेशन नहीं है। एच नॉट इज नल हाइपोथेसिस। सैंपल साइज n is 100, x bar is sample mean 4960, sigma 250, alpha 0.05। rejection rule if z calculated is greater than z alpha by 2 then reject x naught। तो यहाँ पे मॉड ले लिया z कैलकुलेटेड। अगर आप मॉड नहीं लोगे तो z कैलकुलेटेड, अगर वो जो हमने एक बेल शेप कर्व किया था, अगर टेल रीजन में जा रहा है इट विल बी रिजेक्टेड नल हाइपोथेसिस, एंड इफ इट इज इन middle region then it will be accepted।
Excuse me,
So
ma'am.
for yes,
Ma'am, I just want to ask you one thing. In exam, do we have to carry our this table, T test or Z test table, or it will be mentioned in the question only?
generally in exam hall they do not allow you to take any kind of tables, but I would suggest, because your centers are in different colleges and they may not provide you, so you keep in bag. They will not allow you to take inside. You keep in bag, and if suppose a particular value is written in your question paper, then you don't need it, or if tables are attached then also you know don't need it। if you need, you ask them provide these tables। पहले से जब पेपर शुरू हो एक बार क्वेश्चन पेपर देख के आप पहले से बता देना हमें इन टेबल्स की जरूरत है, और अगर वो कहते हैं कि हमें इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं मिली, हमारे पास टेबल्स नहीं है, तो उनसे रिक्वेस्ट करके पूछ लेना कैन वी टेक आवर ऑन टेबल्स। इज इट फाइन?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but
Thank you.
one extreme case also appears। Suppose they tell ki neither we have information to give you tables and you are also not allowed to bring inside your tables, then do one thing, you do the question as far as possible and you write a note there that in our center the tables are not provided and not allowed, so kindly consider this। तो हमारे पास जब पेपर हो जाते हैं उसके बाद सेंटर की इंफॉर्मेशन मिल जाती है कि सेंटर ने किस तरह से बच्चों को टेबल्स दी हैं या नहीं दी, तो उस सेंटर को फिर उस तरह से अप्रोप्रिएटली स्टूडेंट्स विल नॉट बी हार्म्ड इन दोस केस।
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
ओके
मैम
यस
मैम जो काई स्क्वायर टेस्ट है तो मैम वो क्वेश्चन अगर आता है एग्जाम में तो 12.5 के अकॉर्डिंग ही आएगा ना मैम वो कंप्लीट क्वेश्चन?
ऐसा कुछ जरूरी नहीं होता। अगर काई स्क्वायर टेस्ट करने में 12.5 नंबर का बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन नहीं होता, ये आपको सिर्फ एच नॉट एच वन लिखना है और उनको कैलकुलेट करना है। ऐसा भी हो सकता है 8 नंबर का क्वेश्चन दे दे और 4.5 नंबर का कुछ और छोटा क्वेश्चन या डेफिनेशन 2-3 चीजों की पूछ ले। मैं एग्जाम्पल ले रही हूँ। इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन हाउ मच टाइम टू यू टेक टू डू अ क्वेश्चन। हो सकता है केस स्टडी ऐसी हो कि उसमें काई स्क्वायर लगना हो और उसके अंदर 10 नंबर का काई स्क्वायर और 10 नंबर का कुछ और दे दें, या आप जब 12.5 का क्वेश्चन कर रहे हो, इट इज नॉट नेसेसरी कि 12.5 के क्वेश्चन में पार्ट्स नहीं हो सकते। अगर क्वेश्चन छोटा है तो वो 2 डेफिनेशन भी पूछ सकता है 3-4 नंबर में। So you cannot
Okay,
really
ma'am.
predict well in advance that how much marks it will carry, but minimum 7 marks तो होंगे।
ओके मैम।
As per past trends। So here this is your one tail test। Now one tail में क्या है? one tail में आपके alternative hypothesis में single tail है। अब in some books h naught has less than equal to, in some books h naught में सिर्फ equal to लिखते हैं, both are right, but equality जरूर होना चाहिए h naught में। Is it right? Equality should always be there in null hypothesis। Now sometimes एक और आपका कॉन्सेप्ट आता है जो हमने डेटा एनालिसिस में भी किया था, कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल। जब हमने बेल शेप कर्व किया, बेल शेप कर्व में जो मिडिल रीजन है वो आपका एक्सेप्टेंस रीजन है। तो उसके जो दो एंड पॉइंट्स होते हैं ना, दैट इज योर कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल, सॉरी कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल। लेफ्ट साइड का जो पॉइंट है एक्सेप्टेंस रीजन का, दैट इज द लोअर लिमिट ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल, एंड right side का जो point है, that is upper limit of confidence interval. So if your test statistic is lying anywhere in confidence interval, then your null hypothesis is accepted, otherwise it is rejected. और इंटरवल बनाने का तरीका क्या है? ये आपकी टेस्ट स्टैटिस्टिक है, टी इज, ये एग्जांपल है, टी टेस्ट की स्टैटिस्टिक लिखी हुई है, टी इज इक्वल टू एक्स बार माइनस म्यू अपॉन एस एक्स बार. नाउ व्हेन यू just apply math, you take Sx bar on the other side, it will get multiplied by T. And if you find the confidence interval for mu, तो आपका x bar minus mu is equal to T Sx bar. Mu will be equal to this x bar plus minus T Sx bar. This is interval estimate of mu. आप इसको सिर्फ t को एस एक्स बार के साथ मल्टीप्लाई करोगे और x बार के म्यू के इंटरवल के लिए वो x बार प्लस और माइनस हो जाएगा on left side and right side. So this way you can get interval. But in hypothesis testing, you may test it directly by having the critical value, your test statistic value, and then you can accept or reject the null hypothesis. ANOVA, analysis of variance, is also a test. जो हम टी टेस्ट करते हैं, जेड टेस्ट करते हैं, हम मैक्सिमम we do for comparing two means. But if there are more than two means, suppose there are 3 land plots and I want to test the effect of fertilizers on the growth of crop on 3 lands. तो यहाँ पे मैं एवरेज ग्रोथ को, एवरेज ग्रोथ फॉर प्लॉट ए, फॉर प्लॉट बी, फॉर प्लॉट सी, इस तरह से कर रही हूँ. अगर मैं प्लॉट्स का वेरिएशन देखना चाहती हूँ, अगर मैं फर्टिलाइजर्स का वेरिएशन जानती हूँ, तो फर्टिलाइजर ए बी सी, इनको मैं अलग अलग प्लॉट पे स्प्रे करूंगी एंड देन आई विल. नाउ हियर आई हैव 3 means that I need to compare. So whenever more than 2 means are there, I need to go for analysis of variance. So here H naught में all treatments have same effect on mean response. So mu1 equal mu2 equal mu r, अगर r treatment है, सारे इक्वल हैं, एच नॉट में आएगा. H1 में कोई भी दो अगर डिफर कर रहे हैं तो H1 में चला जाएगा. Here there is a different way of computation. We compute between treatment variance, within treatment variance, and total variance, and then we show the test statistics. तो आपके पास ये ऑब्जर्वेशंस हैं, प्राइस लेवल है, और इनके अंदर आपने ओवरऑल सैंपल मीन, ओवरऑल सैंपल साइज, नंबर ऑफ ऑब्जर्वेशंस, प्राइस लेवल एन, इस तरह से टैबुलर फॉर्म में आपका डेटा होता है. जब आप बिटवीन प्राइस लेवल करते हो तो एक प्राइस लेवल और दूसरे प्राइस लेवल के बीच में है, तो एन एक्स पी बार है, ये एट अ पर्टिकुलर प्राइस लेवल उस पे मीन है. बार का बार तब लगता है, एक्स बार मतलब मीन. तो एक पर्टिकुलर प्राइस लेवल का जो एवरेज है, दैट इज एक्स पी बार, और जो ओवरऑल मीन है, दैट इज एक्स डबल बार. सिंस दिस सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स आर बिटवीन प्राइस लेवल्स, तो बिटवीन के अंदर दिस इज अ फॉर्मूला, नंबर ऑफ योर आपका जो नंबर दिया हुआ है एट ईच प्राइस लेवल, दैट इज एनपी. एक्स पी बार इज मीन ऑफ दैट प्राइस लेवल एंड एक्स डबल बार इज ओवरऑल प्राइस लेवल. जैसे आप वेरिएंस कंप्यूट करते थे, वेरिएंस कंप्यूट करने के लिए आपने स्क्वायर्स का सम करके डिवाइडेड बाय एन करते थे, यहाँ पे सिर्फ सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स करना है. So for each price level, sum of squares has to be done, multiplied by the respective number at each price level, and then added. ऐसे ही within price level में आप individual observation at that price level minus the mean of that price level. तो आप within price level के data को आप एक तरह से उनका sum of squares निकाल रहे हो. Then total के अंदर individual with total mean, complete their differences and then find sum of squares. So here these 3 variation sum of squares need to be computed. For डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम अगर बिटवीन प्राइस लेवल है तो जितने भी प्राइस लेवल्स दिए हुए हैं -1, अगर विद इन प्राइस लेवल है तो विद इन प्राइस लेवल जितनी भी ऑब्जर्वेशंस दी हुई हैं माइनस, दिस इज n माइनस r, n इज टोटल नंबर माइनस r इज जितनी आपकी कैटेगरीज बनी हुई हैं प्राइस लेवल की, कितने प्राइस लेवल, और टोटल इज n माइनस 1। तो टोटल के अंदर आप करो 2 डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम टोटली होंगी। बिटवीन प्राइस लेवल 2 थी, विद इन प्राइस लेवल 12, और टोटल में 12 प्लस 2 इट इज 14। वेरिएंस एस्टिमेट मीन सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स, जब आप सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स को डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम से डिवाइड कर दोगे यू विल गेट मीन सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स। विद इन प्राइस लेवल में भी मीन सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स कैसे आएंगे, इसके सम ऑफ स्क्वायर्स से डिवाइड कर दोगे बाय डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम, एंड देन व्हाटएवर क्वांटिटीज यू गेट एज मीन सम ऑफ स्क्वायर यू कंप्यूट देयर रेशियो टू गेट एफ रेशियो, और यहाँ पे आपका एफ टेस्ट लगेगा। एफ टेबल्स होती हैं, जैसे काई स्क्वायर टेबल है, जेड टेबल है, टी टेबल है, ऐसे एफ टेबल है। So here whether the samples are obtained, we use ANOVA basically when means of more than 2 samples are to be compared, whether they are equal or not. This is just a summary of different statistics, and this test statistic आपको ये चाहे parametric test हैं, 2 chapters are devoted for it, one parametric test, the other non-parametric test. I am giving you a basic, I am revising with you the basics of hypothesis testing, which we have already done in data analysis. Again, I am revising because it is a part of marketing research, because when you collect data, analyze results, then again these tests are needed. You need to test the hypothesis. Please go through the statistical formula. Which test statistic is used under which scenario for both parametric and non-parametric tests. What are very important tests are test for mean, test of proportion, chi-square test, t-test, ANOVA, F-test, और ANOVA का ही non-parametric में Kruskal-Wallis test होता है। Non-parametric में it also has a definite procedure and formula. Please go through these tests thoroughly. Non-parametric के और मैन विटने, विल्कॉक्सन, रैंक, बाकी करो ना करो, Kruskal-Wallis जरूर करना, क्योंकि ANOVA और Kruskal-Wallis बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। ठीक है, करने सारे ही चाहिए, बट इफ यू फील इट इज टू मच वॉल्यूम देन डोंट लीव द टेस्ट दैट आई नेम्ड, मीन टेस्ट, proportion test, t-test, chi-square test, chi-square test for goodness of fit and independence, ANOVA, Kruskal-Wallis. Kruskal-Wallis is a non-parametric test where these are non-parametric tests वो होते हैं जो distribution free test हैं, जिनमें आपको underlying distribution की कोई knowledge नहीं है। So again, test of proportion P naught is, this is again the gist of कुछ numericals का snapshot लिया हुआ है, how the standard error confidence intervals are estimated. You have to remember test statistic and there is no shortcut in that. आपका overall procedure of doing hypothesis testing remains same. Calculate critical value, calculate test statistic value, 2 tail है, 1 tail है, उसके हिसाब से null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis define करो. But ultimately test statistic you need to remember. Then one way is either you use a critical value method, the other is use p-value method. p-value में आप probability निकालते हो and you compare with the significance level. If p-value is high, then your null will be accepted. If p-value is low than significance level, then null will be rejected.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Will you please repeat
Yes.
the test name which you have just said?
Test for mean, test for proportion. अब उसमें difference of mean, difference of proportion भी आ जाते हैं, single sample भी, 2 sample भी. So test for mean, test for proportion, जिसमें Z test और T test है. Then chi-square test, उसमें goodness of fit का भी आएगा chi-square में, और test for independence भी आएगा. Then you have ANOVA test. analysis of variance. In non-parametric, Kruskal-Wallis test, which is similar to ANOVA. जैसे ANOVA है ऐसे non-parametric में आपका Kruskal-Wallis है. Please do these tests. They are important. Other tests also there, if time allows, go for Wilcoxon rank test and Mann-Whitney U test. ये non-parametric test के नाम ले रही हूँ. But Kruskal-Wallis and ANOVA is very important. Chi-square is very important. और ये जो test of mean and test of proportions है. Clear? Chi-square
Yes,
भी
yes, ma'am.
non-parametric
Thank
में ही
you.
consider करते हैं. ठीक है. Research report. This is the last topic. Basically, you have done research, you have gathered data according to your objectives. Then now you have done analysis, but the main important part is you are presenting the report, what you have found, how you have done, what is your conclusion. So the written report, some things that need to be taken care of while writing the report. The key purpose of any research report is to offer clear description of what has been done in various stages of research process. It is important to identify specific purpose of report so that it can be tailored accordingly. Examples are simple descriptive report, comprehensive report offering alternative solutions. Presentation of results. Results of study and recommendations to solve problem have to be effectively communicated to the sponsor so that suggestions made are accepted and implemented. Contents and organization of written reports and oral presentation depend on the purpose of research study and audience to which it is targeted. Now, characteristics of a well-written report. What are the characteristics? Clarity, conciseness, coherence, the right emphasis on important aspects, meaningful organization of paragraphs, smooth transition from one topic to next, appropriate choice of words, specificity. Contents of research report, again, title, executive summary or abstract, table of contents, list of tables, figures, and other materials, preface, authorization letter, introductory section, body of the report, final part of the report, references, and appendix. Introductory section में introduction, reason for the research, research objective and research questions, scope of study, research methods or approach that is being used, managerial relevance, structure and division of chapters in the research report. Contents of research report, the final part of report, main findings of research, managerial implications of these findings, recommendations for implementation and cost benefit analysis of these recommendations, limitations of your study and suggestions for future research following up on your research project. Oral presentation deciding on the oral presentation deciding on the content, visual aids, for instance, graphs, charts, tables, presenter, presentation, handling questions. Present the important aspects of study so as to hold the interest of audience while still providing detailed information. Different stimuli, charts, short movies, pictorial or tabular representation. It have to be creatively provided to audience to sustain their interest throughout the presentation. To make all this possible, time and effort have to be expended in crafting, planning, organizing, and rehearsing the presentation. Slides are often helpful. Images, photos, graphs, infographics may also help to sustain the interest of audience. Think about dress, mannerism, gestures, and voice modulation. Speak audibly, clearly, without distracting mannerisms and at the right speed. Establish eye contact, varying the length of sentences. Vary your tone of voice, means where you want to emphasize, then be loud. And the rate of flow of information. Rehearse, keep rehearsing until you feel comfortable about your presentation. Okay. So this is all these report writing. If you think that you have given a project or assignment to someone to carry on this research and present report, तो आप क्या क्या चीजें demand करोगे? Just jot it down and most of things will be clear in your mind कि आप naturally clarity चाहते हो, proper communication चाहते हो and those things. So it is a general topic, but yes, important points should not be missed. Thank you all. So this is all for today, the revision class of marketing research. And I'm sorry I had to leave in between for some urgent work. So your 20 minutes are wasted due to that. But whatever questions you have in mind, you are free to ask.
Ma'am, any
Madam,
specific question for theory to
Uh,
focus on?
Like I said, sampling techniques, research design, these can be complete questions. What do you understand by research designs? Elaborate in detail the research design with examples. What are the different sampling techniques? Numericals में सिर्फ 2 portions हैं numerical पूछने के लिए. Either sample size determination. Again आपको टेस्ट स्टैटिस्टिक्स पता होना चाहिए. टी टेस्ट के लिए क्या फॉर्मूला है, जेड टेस्ट के लिए कौन सा फॉर्मूला है, पाई स्क्वायर का कौन सा फॉर्मूला है, और हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग जहां आपको अगर मीन टेस्ट करना है या प्रोपोर्शन टेस्ट करना है वो क्वेश्चन पढ़ के पता लग जाएगा. तो आपके स्टैटिस्टिकल टेस्ट ही आपके सिर्फ न्यूमेरिकल है. उसके अलावा आपकी डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ रिसर्च डिजाइन, ethical issues in research, report writing में what should be the things that should be followed, questionnaire designing, how should the questions be, different types of scaling and measurement techniques, इसमें कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं आ सकता. ये सारे आपको अगर मेजरमेंट के अंदर नॉमिनल ऑर्डिनल इंटरवल रेशियो है, यू शुड रिमेंबर दीज. उसके अंदर क्या एग्जांपल्स हैं, रेलेवेंट क्या उनकी करेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं. सिमिलरली स्केलिंग टेक्निक्स की क्लासिफिकेशन कैसी है, सैम्पलिंग टेक्निक प्रोबेबिलिटी में कौन कौन सी है, नॉन प्रोबेबिलिटी में कौन कौन सी है. यू हैव टू नो दोस सबहेड्स, बट देयर आर नो न्यूमेरिकल्स देयर. Numericals can be only from hypothesis testing, which are 2 chapters, parametric and non-parametric tests, and your sample size determination. इसके अलावा marketing research में और numerical नहीं है.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, and the basic flow of doing a hypothesis testing question remains same. Just the methodology formula that needs to be applied, you have to take care of that. So I would suggest कि जब आप revision कर रहे हो, you jot down all the formulas on a piece of paper that in this scenario this formula is to be used this, but general procedure of doing hypothesis testing remains same. ANOVA and Kruskal values are a little bit different. Chi square के अंदर थोड़ा सा ये है कि आपका वो tabular format है, but otherwise writing the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, then finding the critical value, that all remains same. So
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
welcome.
मैम
Yes.
मैम एक्चुअली ना आई हैव एन इशू कि जो मार्केटिंग रिसर्च वाला मैम इंटरनल एग्जाम है उसमें ना दिक्कत हो गई है, तो उसमें ना मैम मार्क्स बहुत कम आ गए हैं डिस्पाइट डूइंग द राइट आंसर्स.
मेरे
Yes,
पास
ma'am. Many students are
ये
facing
कुछ
this.
बच्चों की queries आई हैं, and I have informed the IT team, those who are looking after the portal. So don't worry about that. We'll do something. If there is problem at this end or technical glitch, then it will be sorted. You will not suffer due to that.
मैम ऑल्सो इन MIS एग्जाम,
Okay.
बट उसमें इतने लो स्कोर नहीं होगा, बट मैम उसमें भी कम ही होगा. फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में 20 थे, सेकंड में 25. मैम आंसर्स करेक्ट थे.
आपको कैसे पता वो आंसर सारे करेक्ट हैं? आपने कहाँ से वेरीफाई किए हैं?
नहीं मैम, एज पर माई नॉलेज, क्योंकि मैं उसी बैकग्राउंड से हूँ.
अच्छा. ओके, आई आपको ये क्वेरी लग रही है. आई विल फॉरवर्ड योर क्वेरी फॉर MIS and MR to the IT team, and whatever best can be done. If something is wrong at this end, then that will definitely be done. You will not be suffering due to that. So don't worry. Prepare for your main exams and do well. All the best. Any question? Anyone?
मैम लाइक आपने बोला कि ऐसा कोई रेगुलर फॉर्मेट नहीं होता थ्योरेटिकल क्वेश्चंस का न्यूमेरिकल का, बट मैम हमारे पूरे जैसे एसएलएम है उसमें 10 चैप्टर्स हैं, उसमें से 2 to 3 चैप्टर्स सिर्फ न्यूमेरिकल हैं एंड बाकी पोर्शन थ्योरी है। सो वी हैव टू फोकस ऑन थ्योरी कि हमें ज़्यादा न्यूमेरिकल पे फोकस करना है।
देखो, स्टूडेंट्स हु वांट बेस्ट मार्क्स, दे वांट टू स्कोर हाईएस्ट मार्क्स, वो तो कहते हैं वो तो सारा इन डिटेल ही पढ़ के जाएंगे ना, वो तो कुछ भी नहीं छोड़ के जाएंगे। लेकिन नेचुरली मोस्ट ऑफ दी ऐसा नहीं है कि आपके पास 5-6 क्वेश्चन में से 4 क्वेश्चन न्यूमेरिकल आ जाएंगे, क्योंकि उतना न्यूमेरिकल का कंटेंट ही नहीं है। न्यूमेरिकल 1 या 2 क्वेश्चन आएंगे एट दी मैक्स। कहने का मतलब है 20-30%। बट अगर मैं भी एक स्टूडेंट होती और मुझे पता है कि ये सिलेबस है, सिलेबस में 2 चैप्टर्स आर डिवोटेड टू न्यूमेरिकल, देन नेचुरली आपका 80% न्यूमेरिकल तो नहीं आ सकता, थोड़ा बहुत ही आएगा। बट वो ऐसा भी नहीं है कि वो नहीं आएगा, आता जरूर है, क्योंकि इट इज, आप खुद देखो मार्केटिंग रिसर्च में वट एवर रिसर्च यू आर डूइंग, वट एवर डेटा यू आर गैदरिंग, statistical analysis is important. You have to test certain statements that you claim, whether they are fitting well to your research or not. और अगर हैं तो वो उनके बारे में मैं क्या conclusion draw करूं. For that, hypothesis testing forms a very important part. So you cannot ignore the importance of it, but naturally मतलब you can, अगर आपको देखो strict division नहीं है, but मान के चलो 70-30, 75-25, it can be anything like that. Means 70% your theory based. But if like type 1 error, type 2 error कुछ पूछ ले, तो इसको आप theory consider करोगे, practical consider करोगे, ये है तो hypothesis testing का part. If you have clear understanding, then you can write in your own words. So sometimes even practical portion can be asked in theoretical manner. Or if a case study is given, then theory they want you to implement in a particular situation. So the more you are clear about the concept, you will be able to handle it beautifully in the exam.
यस मैम लाइक मैं इसलिए पूछ रही थी ना क्योंकि मार्केटिंग रिसर्च के लिए अभी बीच में 1 डे का ही टाइम है, तो फिर अगर न्यूमेरिकल में ही सारा टाइम चला गया तो फिर थ्योरी अगर नहीं हो पाई, तो इसलिए मैं पूछ रही थी।
ऐसे मत करना कि न्यूमेरिकल में सारा टाइम दे दो और थ्योरी ना करो, वो बहुत गलत हो जाएगा। दैट विल बी टू रॉन्ग। ठीक है,
ओके मैम।
Okay, thank you,
एनीथिंग
ma'am.
एल्स? थैंक यू सो मच। एंड
No,
वन
ma'am.
मोर
Thank
थिंग, लाइक जैसे आप कहते हो कि थ्योरी के लिए टाइम ना बचा, न्यूमेरिकल कर लिया, एक और चीज है थ्योरी में ना, मतलब जो मैंने स्टूडेंट पर्सपेक्टिव से देखा है कि न्यूमेरिकल में चाहे आप मैथ का पेपर भी देते हो, आपके जितने भी क्लियर कॉन्सेप्ट हैं, आप वहां पे देयर आर चांसेस कि आप कोई सिली मिस्टेक कर दो. You are doing in the right manner, but there are chances of mistake. But when it is theory, you know that these are the sampling techniques. आपको अच्छे से पता है और आप अच्छे से उसे प्रेजेंट करके आए हो, तो there you have more certainty about marks. न्यूमेरिकल में देयर आर चांसेस ऑफ मेकिंग मिस्टेक्स. हो सकता है आपने लास्ट डे में इतनी टेंशन में प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो, पहले कभी पढ़ा ही नहीं है, वो मत करना. हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग जैसा अगर आप रिवाइज कर रहे हो ना, उसको 1 टाइम आप पेपर से पहले पढ़ोगे. ऐसा नहीं है जो 1 डे रिवीजन का टाइम है उसमें आप स्टार्टिंग से उस चैप्टर को उठाओ, देन यू विल गेट पैनिक, बिकॉज जो न्यूमेरिकल पोर्शंस होते हैं दे रिक्वायर प्रैक्टिसिंग. And if you are starting that topic on the revision day, then you may not get time to revise the other topics, which can be more scoring. And for that, you already had uh, attended the classes और आपको पता भी है, वो फाइनल डे रिवीजन पहले उसका कर लो जो आपने पढ़ा हुआ है और जो सारी थियोरेटिकल है. उसके बाद वट एवर टाइम you can devote, do for numerical portion, क्योंकि numerical के practicing में तो there is no end to it.
यस मैम, थैंक यू मैम।
Ma'am,
Okay,
you will share this
welcome.
PPT with us?
And everything is there in your SLM, and this
Okay.
recording will be available, so you will
Okay.
automatically get it.
All right, ma'am.
आपकी
Thank you.
recording में ये सारा PPT सब कुछ ही आएगा.
Okay,
Anything
ma'am.
else,
Thank you.
anyone? Okay, thank you so much and all the best for your exam. Read the questions carefully and instructions also before writing any paper, any subject. Yeah. All the best to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well,
Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am.
welcome.